What is the process? Each of the following steps details the process that I have taken in making my own comic dramas. You may follow them as you will, but remember that however you do it, a comic drama must be clean, clear, professional, and fun. All through this process, you should be showing your work to your friends and associates so you can get feedback on what is working and what is not. Take suggestions and don't get discouraged. 1. Pick a comic book. It should be one that you are familiar with and that you like to read because you will be reading and listening to it a lot. You should also be aware of how many characters there are and how much action is in it, since you will need to construct all the sounds from scratch. If you're just starting out, choose a shorter comic with a small cast. 2. Scan the pages. If you already have a digital copy that you can edit, then you can skip this step. The scans should be of good quality and not crooked. Seek the publisher's permission to use the comic's images if possible. There are some who consider displaying full scans of a comic book in any medium to be an act of piracy and could flag you for it. If you don't want to take the risk, you can create an entirely auditory presentation instead and have your listeners follow along with their own hard copy of the comic. After all, a comic drama's main focus is on the auditory experience, not the visual experience. 3. Crop the panels. Look over each page of the comic and determine how many individual panels are on each page. Example, page 1 has 5 panels. Make that many copies of each page and crop each copy down to each successive panel. Example, make 5 copies of page 1, then crop copy 1 to panel 1, copy 2 to panel 2, etc. By the end of this step, you should have an image for each of the comic's individual panels. 4. Edit the panels. This step will help determine how professional your project will look. Edit out any parts of the image that are not part of that comic panel. Examples, white space, images, and speech bubbles from other panels. This can be accomplished by blacking out or whiting out unwanted pieces, or painting over them. Check the color balance and clean up any imperfections. The end result should be a clean, clear sequence of images that remain as close to the original panels as possible. 5. Cast your characters. Let the internet know what you're doing and advertise for voice auditions. You should also go looking for talent yourself, since you know what you want each character to sound like. Look for existing voice reels and demos. Ask for demo recordings for a character where appropriate. Keep an open mind. When you hear something that sounds like the character you want, go for it. As a precaution, you may want to cast understudies as well. 6. Record the voices. Have the actors read through the entire comic before they start to record their lines. Have them pay special attention to the emotions in the pictures and the dialogue. While you are recording, you want to use easy-to-understand names and labels for your tracks and save files. Keep the tracks and files as separated and organized as possible. Save the original recordings and only edit copies of them so you can easily correct mistakes. Professional standard is to record multiple takes of the same line. That way, the editor can pick and choose what they want in the final cut. You can never have too many takes. The more material you have, the more freedom you have to create a good comic drama. 7. Edit the voices. Work with each voice individually and listen to each take as you read the lines from the comic. Use the emotions depicted on the panels and in the written dialogue to determine which take fits best. As stated above, only work with copies of the original recordings. You can also mix and match segments of different takes to get the right inflection or emotion in the final cut. 8. Mix the voices together. Take a copy of each of the character's final voice track and splice them together, using the comic as your guide to form a single, fluid voice track. Timing is important. You want the dialogue to sound natural. Also, leave room for further editing and the sound effects. You may need to make adjustments later. 9. Select and mix your sound effects. There are two kinds of sound effects that you will be working with: action sounds and background sounds. Action sounds denote major events and movements that tie the dialogue together. Using the stage analogy, they are the props the characters interact with. Background sounds are the Foley and ambience that fill in the gaps and often are heard under the dialogue. They are the backdrop and scenery. While not essential, background sounds support the rest of the structure and add believability to the environment. Start with the action sounds because these will affect the timing. Be sure to keep the voice track and soundtrack separate as you work. Use both the comic book and copy of your finalized voice track as your timing guide. Make changes to the voice track as needed to fit the timing of the action sounds. Once the action sounds are done, go back and add the background sounds to fit the timing of the voices and action sounds. Leave room for future editing as you see fit. There are online stores and websites that have entire libraries of sound effects for your use. There are also libraries available from major companies like Warner Brothers and BBC. You can also make your own if you are creative enough. Please note that when it comes to getting sound effects in music, keep it legal. Most professional sound effects in music have royalties. You can get busted for using them. 10. Select and mix your music. The music, like stage lighting, will set the mood of the story. However, it should not overshadow the voices or the sounds. It should be clear, but not distracting, and it should be appropriate to the emotions of the scene. As before, use copies of files when mixing your music. Keep the music, sound, and voice tracks separate from each other. Edit the music to fit the voices and sounds, making small adjustments to the voice and soundtrack as you need to. You don't want to throw off the synchronization you've already established. It is best to fit the music to the scene, rather than the scene to the music. 11. Finalize the audio. Once the voice, sound, and music are all complete and synchronized, save a copy of each track individually. Then, mix them all into a single track and export it as an audio file, such as a WAV file, an MP3 file, etc. This is a perfect time for showing your work to others. Get their feedback and see if there's anything that you can improve before moving on. 12. Import the soundtracks and pictures into the video editing software. 13. Synchronize the visuals to the audio. Add transitions and effects as appropriate, but use them sparingly. The audio should be strong enough to stand on its own, and you don't want to detract from it. 14. Add the finishing touches. Good opening sequences will help introduce your comic and help hook in the audience. Closing credits will help answer the audience's questions, give credit to your cast and crew, and keep you out of the mud. 15. And this is important. If you are using material in your comic drama that you did not create yourself, example, the comic book, the sound effects, the music, etc., you should include a disclaimer at the beginning of the video stating that you do not own the rights. A good disclaimer may sound like, "This comic book name here, is property of company name here," etc. In the closing credits, it would be wise to specify what material you used, where you got it from, and who owns that material. Give credit where it's due. 16. Finalize the video. Go over it several times to make sure that there are no problems in the video. Once it's all ready, save a copy of the project file, then export your finished work. Finally, upload the finished video to the internet and let the world enjoy. Thank you for joining me for this special presentation. You now have all the knowledge and tools that you need to create your own comic dramas. Get out there and show them what you're made of.